The communities in the Peruvian Andes have always been exposed to climatic hazards. Already the Incas have developed innovative ways to adapt to a challenging landscape and climate, and the breathtaking Machu Picchu settlement, agricultural terraces have prevented soil erosion and landslides. Nowadays, climate change imposes new and changing threats, such as increasing temperatures and glacial retreat. Peru has used the CRiSTAL tool within the Adaptation to the Impact of Rapid Glacial Retreat in the Tropical Andes project, also known as PRA, to find ways to help communities in the municipality of Santa Teresa adapt to current and future climate hazards.
Santa Teresa es uno de los proyectos piloto del PRA.
Santa Teresa is a pilot area within the PRA project. To identify adaptation measures that are to be implemented in the area, we have used a Climate Vulnerability and Capacity Analysis, or CVCA manual, in combination with CRiSTAL. As a result of this participatory process that was developed in 14 communities within the district, we have identified adaptation measures that correspond to the main climate risks. The main risks perceived by the communities are related to the temperature increase, variation in rainfall patterns, water scarcity during dry periods, and landslides as a consequence of excessive rain, as well as increased pests and diseases.
Deslizamientos como consecuencia del exceso de lluvia con incremento de plagas y enfermedades.
Together with the local population, we have created this risk map for the community of Lucmabamba. We have identified few areas affected by landslides, which cover this entire part of Lucmabamba. We have also identified flood-prone areas, regions that have had forest fires within the area, as well as the occurrence of mudslides due to heavy rains. We have heavy rains due to the fact that we are located at the edge of a jungle.
Por el exceso de precipitación, debido a que nos encontramos en unas zonas de ceja de selva, donde las precipitaciones pluviales son elevadas.
This landslide occurred on April 10, 2008. It has affected 7 dwellings, and we lost 2 hectares of land. This has happened because we have springs up there, several springs, and in times of heavy rains, more water comes out, wets the soil, and so the land slid off. Before, 30 to 40 years back, I have never witnessed these types of landslides, but in the past few years they have occurred. This could be an impact of climate change. The lower land was part of a large prairie, however, within a blink of an eye, it has just disappeared.
Esta parte de abajo era una pampa inmensa, pero en un abrir y cerrar de ojos se ha ido al frente.
Further downstream, a recent flood has ripped off an entire bridge. In comparison to 30 to 50 years ago, the rains nowadays are much more intense in this community, in this area. That is why we are experiencing these landslides and flooding more frequently, in shorter periods compared to the past. The rain falls in periods where it should not rain. There has been a lot of variation. For example, right now, it should not be raining because the rains usually start mid-August, September, October, November, and so forth. However, now we have had rains during the months of June and July. This makes the coffee blossom, and when the sun comes back, the coffee harvest is ruined. This affects the coffee a lot. It is similar for cassava and other crops. That is to say, they are affected by blights or pests.
El sol lo hace abortar, entonces hay mucha alteración en café, por ejemplo. Igualito en los cultivos como yuca, todo eso afecta. La garra rancha, plagas.
Gathered insights on climate hazards, their impacts on lives and livelihoods, and existing responses strategies were then entered into CRiSTAL. Having organized and analyzed this information, The project team then developed tailor-made climate risk reduction measures in close collaboration with affected communities. A lot of the measures that have been implemented have to do with soil conservation practices, water harvesting measures such as drainage filters and reforestation in the mid and highlands of the basin. Also, good practices on water usage for both agriculture and human consumption. In addition, there are adaptation measures that have to do with families' livelihoods and food security, like organic family gardens, to guarantee sustained production throughout the year. Likewise, ecological stoves, not just for climate mitigation, but as a way to save on biomass that translates to a decrease in cutting trees or less need for biomass for consumption, and therefore communities are able to protect the trees and lower the deforestation rates. Also, we implement adaptation measures that have to do with social organization and strengthening of various forms of organizational, productive, and social management.
Nos encontramos en una parcela de café.
We are here in a coffee plot where, as part of the PROP project, in cooperation with the municipality, experimental lots have been installed. For example, within this land parcel, we have introduced a drip irrigation system to evaluate the efficiency of water use. We are currently testing the efficiency of these irrigation systems in order to cope with climate change and scarcity of water resources. We have installed this type of system for coffee production, as it is one of the main crops on which the economy of Santa Teresa depends.
Principales, o es uno de los cultivos del cual depende la economía del distrito de Santa Teresa.
Con el apoyo de CARE y a través de la municipalidad, ¿no? Se ha implementado biohuerto.
With the support of CARE and the municipality, we have implemented these shade nets where we have initially produced cabbage, lettuce, and cauliflower. We then introduced tomato plants. We planted the first ones here in February, and we have been able to obtain about 8 to 10 kilos per plant. The other ones over there were planted 3 months back, and we have been able to obtain an average of 1.5 to 2 kilos per plant. One of the many advantages of using shade nets is the ability to control pests.
En 3 meses hemos sacado más o menos el promedio de cada mata a 2 kilos, kilo y medio a 2 kilos. Las ventajas acá es fácil controlable de las plagas. Acá adentro es el...
The results have been 100% positive, as we are able to minimize the effects of direct exposure to the sun and other things. Water is administered through a drop irrigation system. The work inside here is safe, 100% safe. If I had enough resources, I would install 1 or 2 more of these shade nets myself, with my own means.
Viendo esto, yo me quedo convencido, si tendría recursos económicos suficientes, instalaría unos 2 o 3 de estos módulos, personal.
Identificar en una comunidad la vulnerabilidad diferencial a partir del acceso y control de recursos.
We have identified gender-specific measures for men and women within our project. For example, in the case of Santa Teresa, we are implementing alternative activities to agriculture, particularly for groups of women. As a result of our analysis, women were identified as a particularly vulnerable group to the effects of climate change. When there is a loss of assets, goods, materials, or when there is migration due to climate change, the ones that stay in the area are women, heads of households, and with them we are implementing activities that will lead to increased capacities and more access and control over resources within this context of vulnerability.
Cuando hay pérdida de activos, cuando hay pérdida de bienes, cuando hay pérdida de materiales, cuando hay migración por efectos del cambio climático, las que permanecen en la zona son mujeres, líderes de familia, y con las que estamos validando estas actividades para que efectivamente tengan mejores capacidades y tengan acceso y control a recursos en un contexto tan vulnerable.
Based on the application of CRiSTAL, several activities have been devised to increase the adaptive capacity of women. For example, members of the Women's Association in the community of Sulucuyok have received support in beekeeping, both to increase production through better techniques and in commercialization of outputs. Beekeeping helps to diversify the income sources of the families in the area, which depend largely on agriculture. In addition, higher revenues give women more access to many key resources for adaptation, including financial services.
Ya tenemos cada uno nuestra tarjeta. Entonces, así debemos seguir.
When there is an emergency, for example, in regards to health or education, or especially in the case of natural disasters, we are able to withdraw money from our account.
Una emergencia, por ejemplo, por salud, o de repente por educación. Si hay desastres naturales, en especial así cuando hay desastres naturales, ¿no? Esos motivos debemos retirar, sacar nuestra plata.
La asociación es la asociación de artesanías.
In Santa Teresa, the project supports female handicraft producers.
Estamos trabajando en lo que son alpaca, algodón lima y algodón, que son productos generalmente para el turismo. No es el trabajo en lo que es local.
We are part of the Women's Association of Santa Teresa, and we work with wools, including from alpaca. Our products are normally for tourists, that is to say that the production is not for local consumers, but for people that come from outside. We make dresses, jackets, gloves, and similar things.
Y ahorita en la asociación estamos ya casi formalizados. Estamos casi formalizando y estamos también inscritos en lo que son la asociación de artesanos. Y estamos participando en lo que son ferias ahora. Estamos en eso, ¿no? Nosotros generamos otro tipo de trabajo.
The association is close to being formalized, and we are registered with the Handicraft Association. We're participating in fairs, and we're generating other types of work outside of our housework. We dedicate our free time to knitting, and through it, we're able to generate additional income to help out in the household. This is how we have been able to make progress. We have had good sales, and now we know that we can gain something, and so we have been able to generate a good income. CRiSTAL is complementary to CVCA. With CVCA, we collect with some specific methods information about perceptions, practices, and scientific information. We then process this information through CRiSTAL, and the information is generated through CRiSTAL and helps us to screen activities, identify measures, and to focus on adaptation and adaptive practices. So to propose adaptation measures, it allows us to clearly identify what specific actions and measures are needed to confront perceived hazards. We now have 3 municipalities in the district that have specific adaptation projects and that have allocated funds to implement them, using the lessons learned from the PROP project as an example. CRiSTAL has allowed the PROP project team to systematically organize and analyze the information on climate hazards, impacts, and responses in rural communities in the Santa Teresa municipality, so as to improve their capacity to face the risks a changing climate may bring.